Welcome back to Plant Etc. Now, when you're looking at a beautiful garden and you see flowers or vegetables, you need to think about how healthy is the soil. You see, to ensure that you have these beautiful sunflowers or beautiful dahlias in your garden, you need to make sure you are nourishing the soil. Just like human beings, the soil has some superfood that it relies on. And in this case, superfood would be worm castings. Yes, worms are part of your compost, of course, but having it in a concentrated format in your soil when you're planting your vegetables, whether you're doing that in a pot or you're doing it directly in the ground, or you're putting even your seed in directly in the ground, you need to make sure that the soil is very healthy and has very good nutrients in there to ensure the success of all your plants. And worm casting is that success factor, I should say. That's what gets it that little oomph, gets it going. To be able to do that, you're going to need a special kind of setup. It's not your usual compost bin that's going to do it for you this time. You're going to need to think about getting some kind of a vermicompost system set up. And today what I'm going to do is walk you through that process as to how I set one up. Hopefully you'll get something out of this video and it will help you get things going for the springtime in your garden. So now to get started, you're going to have to think of what kind of a container you want to put your worms in. There's all sorts of varieties of containers out there. You can find some at your local store or, of course, online. You can also do a DIY system here with your own bins. You'll need to purchase a few of them from the local store, and probably you'll need 3 different bins, or at least one big one, to have a really good supply of worm casting. Now I'm showing you the one that I got. I ended up with this 3-tier system. I bought it in the end on Marketplace. I got it at a really reasonable price. Of course, it was secondhand, so somebody had already used it. I'm opening it up here and showing you. They had done some kind of a cleanup, but it wasn't super clean when I got it, but I further washed it and I made everything nice and clean. But it came with 3 bins. The person had even included the instructions. I had really done lots of research online and had found that this kind of bin is really the one that I wanted to use for what I was using it for. It's got at the bottom there, you see the drain, which is a little bit plugged up there, but that's where kind of like the liquid that is produced from the worms are kept, and then you can drain it. Now, the next step will be, of course, that you will need to figure out what to put inside your compost bin, how you're going to set it up, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So what are you going to need to get your worm bin going? One of the first thing is the bottom bedding that you will need to make sure that your worms are kept moist and are kept healthy. I use Coco Coir. I just got a block of it and it will expand, so I got it all wet. And then I use that as the bottom bedding for 2 of my trays. You will also need, of course, some cardboard, newspaper, or brown paper bag, whatever you can find that will be part of the bedding. You could even use some wood chips, some leaves also will be good. So whatever is kind of like a brown material that you can put at the bottom where your worms are going to be very comfortable and where they're going to stay. And then otherwise, if you're using newspaper or cardboard, again, make sure you get it very wet before you put it down as bedding for the worms. Okay, next up is we're going to talk about what type of worm that you can use in the compost bin, in this particular worm compost bin. You can't use your regular worm that you have in your compost bin. You're going to have to purchase some. And the star of the show is the red wigglers. I got my red wigglers at the pet store, actually. They do use them to feed animals, so you will be able to find them there, and they're very reasonable. In those containers that I'm showing you, there's about 25 in each one of the containers, so that's a good number. I was only starting one of my little trays. You can see them there. They're a very specific, distinct color. They're very red in how they look compared to your regular earthworms. And also their characteristic is that they consume a lot of food very, very quickly. They consume about 75% of their body weight in a day. That's a lot. So that's why you have to get that type of worm instead of just using something you would find in your compost bin, and they won't consume as much and they won't produce as much casting as quickly. So that's why you have to go through that process. Now the next thing is, what do you feed them? So you're going to put them in this little container, but what are you going to put there? Our favorite food includes squash. I'm showing you here what I'm putting in mine. I had some leftover tomatoes that had fallen because I'm setting this up in the fall, so I had some green tomatoes that I wasn't going to use. I had a little squash there that was kind of going bad. So squash is one of their favorite food. Anything that is quick, that's going to break down very quickly. They love bananas. Of course, they love cantaloupes and watermelons and things like that. Pumpkins, if you have anything like that lying around. Any kind of fruit and vegetables are very good. Try and avoid citrus, and they don't seem to really they will consume it, but they don't like it as much. So it will stay quite a long time in your bin if you put too many oranges or lemon and things like that in there. So what I would say is try and vary the food as much as you can. What I do is I put mine in the freezer and then I bring them in, and it kind of mushes up much faster and it's easier for them to consume that way. So next here I'm showing you how I'm setting everything up. You can see I had my cocoa core nicely wetted down. So I've put on the two first layers, I've put the cocoa core, I've put some wood chips down and some cardboard. I had read somewhere that your bottom bin, although you're not going to put your worms in that bottom bin, you should have something there just in case some of them decide to escape and go to the lower level. So I'm not putting any food in the lower level, but I just put some kind of bedding and getting that all set up in case some of them decide to move to the lower level. So in this top level that I'm now putting in place, you can see I have my cocoa core there, and then I'm going to start adding some of the food. I had some greens. This is, I believe that was part of my sweet potato leaves, my sweet potato disaster of the year, but the leaves were all over the place and I had lots of that. So then I put some in the bin there for the worms, and then I'm also going to put some other vegetables that I had that were extras that I wasn't going to use, and you can see I'm dumping in here the poor little worms. They will find their way. They try and establish themselves. It takes them about 24 hours, but like I said, you can see the distinct color of them. They are very red compared to the other ones. Some of them look maybe not as red as they should be, but they are a bit in shock when you're moving them around. This is not their normal habitat. They will get to starting to move and making this new bin their home, slowly but surely. It does take them a little bit of time to do that, but yeah, so I'm putting all of them. I'm putting all three of them. Like I said, each one of those little bins that I'm putting down have about 25 worms in it, so I put a total of 75 worms down in that first layer bin. And then I'm going to keep adding the worms and adding some food here. And once I am done with all that, I will make sure that they're comfortable. I added the tomatoes, I added some kale here, you can see. I think I had a few carrots in there, all the little bits that I had. I did put some garlic leaves. They don't really like garlic either. They don't like garlic, they don't like onions, and they don't like citrus, but I plunked it in there. That's what I had, and I just put it in. We'll see what happens. Then you can see I'm adding kind of like my other brown material to kind of cover it some more. This helps to keep the moisture in place for the bin. So I've added some more brown material. You can see it's pretty full. So, and then I am putting over it to keep the warmth again. I used an old piece of burlap that I had to cover it up. And I mean, you can purchase a burlap piece to put on there, but I had an old coffee bean burlap bag that I cut up, and then I just put that on top. So all that to give it some additional protection and to keep that moisture in, which is what is really important for the worms. You don't want them kind of drying out. The next piece is, where are you going to locate your worm bin? You want to make sure you put it somewhere where it's a little bit sheltered from the wind, and where it's getting some good sun, because in the springtime you want some heat in there to help kind of the worms be more active and to keep them a little bit more busy, and more happy. You can see there, actually I'm adding a little bit of wood chips, because that's actually good. They do like some wood chips to eat along the way. So yeah, so I placed mine kind of at the end of my garden bed. I'll show you a final picture. I think in a few moments there, I'm kind of looking, going, I think I forgot to add water to this. So I'm gonna add the water and spray it, because you should wet it down as much as possible. And I'm doing that here. I'm wetting it down, just to keep it as moist as possible. I am not going to repeat that process very often, especially in the wintertime, because it is going to stay moist quite a bit. But once the summer comes, you should probably moisten it once a week to make sure that nothing is too dry in there. So yeah, so definitely make sure you do that. Now, the other thing that I did, and you probably don't need to do this, is because I was getting into the winter months, when I set this up was in late fall, I decided to put like an insulation around it. I had this cardboard box, which actually the bin perfectly fits into. So I've insulated it with that. So I've put my bin inside that cardboard box, and then on top of it I've added like a piece of wood, just to kind of try and keep it from getting too drowned out with the rain, because I am in the West Coast and we get a lot of rain, and I didn't want it to get too soaking wet. So I added that piece of wood just to kind of protect it a little bit. The box is still there months later. I mean, it is starting to disintegrate a little bit, but it still creates a little bit of an insulation, and I'm sure helps to keep the heat over the winter a little bit more into the bin. You can see it there. I'm showing you where it's located. It's kind of at the end of my garden, tucked into the corner underneath where the berries are, the blackberries are, and it's kind of sheltered that way a little bit from the wind and from getting too much rained on also. Now that I've showed you how to set up your worm compost bin, I hope that you're going to try this at home. It is so easy to do. You can do it, like I said, in a DIY kind of version, where you use some containers definitely with a lid on it. If you don't use a nice secure lid, you might have some surprise visitors like Mr. Raccoon here. So make sure that you have a lid on your vermicompost, and that you keep it secure, whether you do a piece of wood like I did, but some kind of a system to make sure that the top lid, visitors cannot come in there very easily. So now that you've seen the process, I hope you try it and you embark on this journey with me. So thank you very much for watching this video. Happy gardening, and we'll see you in the next video. Actually, the next video, I'm going to show you my first feeding and some extra food that I give to my worm. So looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.